The divorce papers landed on my kitchen counter on our 5th wedding anniversary. I stared at Michael's signature, bold and final, as he stood across from me with his arms crossed. My dinner reservations were in 30 minutes. The oven timer beeped, signaling that the celebration cake was ready. "I deserve someone who actually believes in me," he said, not meeting my eyes. "You never did." I turned off the oven without opening it. 5 years of supporting his dreams flashed before me, the extra jobs, the delayed medical appointments, the emptied savings account. And now, just as Quantum Leap Technologies had secured its first $1 million client, I was disposable. "When did you decide this?" My voice was eerily calm as I touched the edge of the papers. "It's been coming for a while." He checked his expensive new watch, the one I hadn't questioned when he came home with it last week. "There's no need to make a scene. I've already packed essentials. I'll get the rest later." Without thinking, I reached for my laptop. "I just need to cancel our dinner reservation." Instead, I opened my banking app and transferred every dollar from our joint account to my personal one. All $73,000, money I'd been saving toward a down payment on a house. The money that had kept us afloat while he found himself. I hit confirm just as he stepped toward the door. "The car isn't in your name," I said quietly. "You might want to call an Uber." His face twisted with shock as I picked up the divorce papers and walked to our bedroom, locking the door behind me. The banging started 15 minutes later. By then, I'd already called my sister Maya and was throwing clothes into a suitcase. "Open the goddamn door, Rebecca." "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Michael's voice carried through the apartment. "You can't just take that money." I continued packing methodically, my hands strangely steady. For 5 years, I'd avoided confrontation, choosing peace over justice. I'd believed in the partnership even as it became increasingly one-sided. The startup dream had consumed our lives, and I'd played my part without complaint. "That money is for the company," he shouted. "You're going to ruin everything we've built." "We." The word hung in the air as I zipped my suitcase. There was no "we" in the incorporation documents I'd seen. No "we" in the equity structure. My name appeared nowhere in the business I'd sacrificed everything to build. My phone buzzed with texts. "Michael, you're being irrational. Let's talk like adults." "Michael, my mom is calling you. Please answer." "Michael, this isn't like you, Becca. I'm worried about you." Michael's mom. "Rebecca, darling, please call me." "Michael says you're upset. I promised I'd always look out for you, remember?" That last one stung the most. Linda Chin had held my hands across her dining table 3 years ago, promising to always treat me like a daughter. "Family is everything to us," she'd said. 2 months ago, she'd sat in our living room reviewing company documents, carefully explaining why it made sense for Michael to be the sole founder on paper. The pounding on the door grew more insistent. I heard Michael talking to someone. His business partner, Nathan, had arrived. "She's lost her mind, man." She emptied the joint account. "Shit. That's the money for the server expansion, isn't it?" Their voices dropped lower, but I caught fragments. "Lawyer. Temporary insanity. Freeze the assets." I called my bank and explained the situation, asking them to flag my account for protection. The representative was sympathetic. Apparently, they dealt with divorce asset disputes regularly. "Miss Chin, do you have documentation showing this was your income?" I almost laughed. Documentation was my specialty. Every transfer, every loan, every penny I'd contributed to keep us afloat while Michael built his dream was meticulously recorded. Not because I'd anticipated this moment, but because organization was how I coped with anxiety. "Yes," I said. "I have everything." The doorknob jiggled violently. "Rebecca, if you don't open this door, I'm calling the police," Michael shouted. I picked up my suitcase and walked to the window. The fire escape would lead to the side street, away from the front entrance where Michael and Nathan were likely parked. I'd never used it before, had even been nervous about it during fire drills. Now it looked like freedom. As I climbed out, I heard Michael's final threat: "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." For the first time in years, I was absolutely certain that I wasn't. "He actually served you divorce papers on your anniversary?" Maya's voice was incredulous as she poured me another glass of wine in her small apartment living room. "While you were baking him a cake." Classic Michael timing. I scrolled through the 27 messages and 9 missed calls that had accumulated in the 3 hours since I'd left. He always did have a flair for dramatic exits. After everything you did for him? God, I never liked him, but this is low even for him. Maya had never hidden her disapproval of my marriage, especially as she watched me work myself to exhaustion supporting Michael's ambitions. The worst part is that I actually believed in his stupid company, I admitted. I just wasn't useful anymore once it succeeded. My phone rang again. Linda Chen. I declined the call. His mother has called 6 times. She's the one who hurts the most. She kept promising me that she was on my side, that she was protecting my interests. My voice cracked for the first time. She helped him hide me from the company documents. You need a lawyer, Beck. A shark. I know. I opened my email to find a message from Michael's company address. Rebecca, I understand you're upset, but your actions today have put the company at risk. The funds you took were earmarked for critical infrastructure. Please transfer the money back to the company account immediately, and we can discuss a fair settlement. This emotional response is exactly why I kept telling you that you weren't ready for the pressure of being officially part of the executive team. You see? You're proving my point. I still care about you, but I need a partner who can handle the challenges of startup life without falling apart. Michael, I handed the phone to Maya, who read it and nearly threw my phone across the room. Who does he think funded his critical infrastructure for the past 5 years? Who paid the rent when he couldn't? Who maxed out her credit cards buying server equipment? Maya was furious. He has the audacity to call you emotional? I have receipts, I said quietly. For everything. What do you mean? Every time he needed money for the business, I kept records. Every time he promised it was a loan to the company, I asked for it in writing. Emails, texts, notes. I have them all. I'm the breadwinner he made invisible, but I documented everything. Maya's expression changed from anger to something like admiration. You knew this might happen, didn't you? Not exactly. I stared into my wine glass. I just never fully trusted that he saw me as an equal partner. So I protected myself, just in case. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Rebecca, this is Nathan. Michael is freaking out. He says you're trying to sabotage the company. We need that money back today or we lose the Microsoft contract. Please don't ruin what we've built because you're mad at Michael. I took a deep breath and replied, Nathan, I've never met you in person despite funding your company for 5 years. The money is mine. It was never designated for the company. It was my personal savings that Michael had no right to count as business funds. I'll see you both in court. I blocked his number, then turned back to Maya. I need to find a place of my own tomorrow. You can stay here as long as you need, she insisted. No. For once, my usual conflict avoidance was nowhere to be found. I need my own space. And I need to be ready for what comes next. Because he's not going to let this go easily. The next morning, I woke to an email from Quantum Leap Technologies' corporate lawyer requesting an urgent meeting to discuss misappropriated company funds. I forwarded it to 3 divorce attorneys and scheduled consultations with all of them. I hadn't expected the knock on Maya's door at 8:30 a.m. When I looked through the peephole, Linda Chin stood there, immaculately dressed as always, her expression a practiced blend of concern and authority. Rebecca, darling, I know you're in there. Please, let's talk like family. Family. The word that had once meant everything to me now felt hollow. I had idolized Linda, her business acumen, her poise, her apparent warmth. She had mentored me, invited me into her home, treated me like the daughter she never had. Or so I'd thought. I'm not interested in talking, I said through the door. Sweetheart, I understand you're hurt. Michael handled this terribly. You have every right to be angry. But the money you took, it's going to destroy everything Michael has worked for. Everything Michael worked for? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. For 5 years, I paid our rent while he built that company. I covered our health insurance while he reinvested every dollar of early revenue. I took extra freelance projects to buy server equipment. Where was my name on any of the company documents, Linda? You sat with us and advised him to keep me off everything. There was a pause before she responded, her voice lower. It was business, Rebecca. We had to protect the company. I told you we would take care of you informally. Informally? I laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even me. Like the informal way Michael decided to divorce me the moment the company succeeded? Or the informal way you all decided my 5 years of sacrifice were worth nothing? That's not fair. You promised me, Linda. You looked me in the eye and promised you would protect me. Family is everything, you said. Rebecca, please open the door. This isn't the way to handle things. Michael said you've been acting irrationally. I stepped closer to the door. I have documentation of every dollar I put into that company. Every promise that it was a loan to be repaid. Every time Michael acknowledged my contribution in writing. If that's irrational, then you raised a son who doesn't understand basic business principles. Her silence told me everything I needed to know. Please tell Michael and Nathan that my attorney will be in touch. And Linda? Don't ever come to my door calling me family again. I heard her hesitate, then the sound of her heels clicking down the hallway. Maya emerged from her bedroom, wide-eyed. Holy shit, Beck. I've never heard you stand up for yourself like that. I was shaking, but it wasn't from fear. For the first time in years, I felt something like power. I need to go apartment hunting, I said. And then I need to meet with the best business attorney in San Francisco. 3 days later, I'd secured a small studio apartment and met with Eliza Montgomery, a divorce attorney who specialized in cases involving startup companies. The moment I showed her my documentation, her professional smile transformed into something predatory. Miss Chen, do you realize what you have here? She asked, flipping through my meticulously organized files. Evidence that I funded the company? You have much more than that. She tapped a specific email exchange. This is Michael explicitly acknowledging that your funds were loans to the company, with promised equity. Here, he refers to you as a co-founder in communications with potential clients. And here, she pointed to a document I'd almost forgotten. He signed a promissory note for $40,000 of your personal funds, with your name clearly listed as an investor. Hope flickered inside me. What does that mean? It means, she said, leaning forward, that despite their efforts to erase you from the company, they left a paper trail. You don't just have a divorce case, Ms. Chen. You have a business case against Quantum Leap Technologies for fraud and breach of contract. For the first time since seeing those divorce papers, I felt my lips curve into a smile. The retaliation started almost immediately. First came the email to my boss at the marketing agency where I worked, suggesting I was mentally unstable and had stolen company property. Fortunately, my boss knew me well enough to be skeptical, but the message was clear. Michael would try to destroy my reputation if I didn't back down. Then came the threat to evict me from our apartment, where I'd moved back after finding my own place. The lease was in both our names, but Michael's lawyer claimed I had abandoned the property and had no right to return. Let him have the apartment, I told Eliza. There's nothing there I need. Are you sure? You have every right to, I'm sure. I just want to move forward. The next attack was more personal. Michael began calling mutual friends, spinning a story about how I'd changed once the company became successful, how I was jealous of his accomplishments and trying to steal his life's work. Some believed him. Others called me confused and concerned. I said little in my defense, simply directing anyone who asked to wait for the legal proceedings. The truth would speak for itself. The worst blow came a week later, when I discovered Michael had somehow gained access to my laptop before I left. He'd taken screenshots of personal journal entries, raw, emotional writing I'd done during therapy, and was threatening to share them with our social circle if I didn't return the company funds. I forwarded his threat to Eliza, who immediately filed for a temporary restraining order and added extortion to our growing list of claims against him. He's getting desperate, she noted. That's good for us, but be careful. Men like this become unpredictable when cornered. That night, alone in my new apartment with its sparse furnishings and bare walls, I allowed myself to cry for the first time. Not for the marriage, I was beginning to see how toxic it had been, but for the years I'd surrendered my power to someone who had never truly seen me as an equal. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The board meeting is tomorrow. Nathan and Michael are presenting an emergency recovery plan to save the Microsoft contract. They don't know I know about what they did to you. I stared at the message, trying to figure out who might have sent it. This is Kira from IT at Quantum. We've never met, but I've processed your financial transfers to the company for years. I have the server logs showing they deliberately removed your access credentials last month. I thought you should know. I sat up straighter, my heart pounding. Why are you telling me this? Her response came quickly, because they're doing the same thing to me. I built their entire infrastructure. Now that it's working, they're bringing in a real CTO next month. A guy, of course. I closed my eyes, thinking, this changed everything. Kira, would you be willing to meet with my attorney? The Microsoft contract was worth $8 million, by far the largest in Quantum Leap's short history. According to Kira, without the $73,000 I'd reclaimed, the company couldn't purchase the server capacity needed to deliver the first project milestone. They're presenting an emergency funding request to their investors tomorrow, Kira explained as we sat in Eliza's office the next day. But no one's going to approve cash that quickly, not even as a bridge loan. They overpromised on delivery timelines. And the board doesn't know about the financial situation? Eliza asked. No. Michael and Nathan have been creative with the financial reporting. They've been counting on using Rebecca's personal savings as a stopgap. They never thought she'd actually take her own money back. Kira's admiration was evident in her voice. I sat quietly, processing this information. So, without those funds, they'll miss the milestone and potentially lose the contract. Exactly. And if they lose Microsoft, the whole company could collapse. The valuation is based on landing this big client. Eliza looked at me thoughtfully. Miss Chen, I believe we have leverage for a very favorable settlement. I don't want a settlement, I said, surprising myself with my certainty. I want what I earned. Recognition as a co-founder and my rightful equity in the company. That's going to be a much harder fight, Eliza cautioned. I've been fighting for 5 years, I replied. I'm not stopping now. That afternoon, I received another flurry of texts from Michael. Rebecca, this has gone far enough. You've made your point. We can work out a fair financial settlement. Just transfer the funds back today. You're about to destroy everything we built together. Is that what you want? I didn't respond. For once, I was letting my actions speak for me. When Linda called again, I answered. Rebecca, please be reasonable, she began without preamble. Michael is willing to be very generous in the divorce settlement. You can walk away with a significant amount. I'm not interested in his generosity. Linda, I interrupted. I want what I earned. My name on the company I helped build and my share of its success. That's simply not possible. The paperwork is already done. The investors were lied to, I finished for her. They were told a story about a solo founder with a brilliant vision, when in reality, it was funded by his wife's salary and savings. I advised you about this, Rebecca. I told you to get things in writing if you wanted to be part of the company officially. I did get it in writing. Every email, every text, every promissory note. Michael acknowledged me as a co-founder in communications with clients. He signed documents confirming my investments were loans to the company with promised equity. The silence on the other end stretched on. The board meeting is tomorrow, I continued. I suggest Michael and Nathan be honest with their investors about the company's financial situation and my role in building it. Otherwise, I'll be forced to share what I know directly with the board. You wouldn't dare. Linda's voice had lost its maternal warmth entirely. 5 years ago, I wouldn't have. But your son taught me an important lesson about business, Linda. Sometimes you have to be ruthless to get what you deserve. I ended the call and turned to find Maya standing in my apartment doorway, a bottle of champagne in hand. I heard that whole thing, she said, grinning. Who are you, and what have you done with my conflict-avoidant sister? I laughed, genuinely laughed, for the first time in weeks. I think she's gone for good. Good riddance, Maya said, popping the champagne cork. I like this Rebecca much better. The next morning, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Nathan. Rebecca, it's Nathan Walsh from Quantum Leap. I know who you are, Nathan, though we've never actually met despite me funding your salary for 3 years. My voice was cool and professional, the voice I used in high-stakes client meetings, not the appeasing tone I'd adopted throughout my marriage. He cleared his throat uncomfortably. Look, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Michael may have miscommunicated some things about your involvement with the company. Is that what you told the board this morning? That there was a misunderstanding about who built and funded Quantum Leap Technologies? His sharp intake of breath told me my guess was correct. They hadn't been honest with their investors. How did you never mind? Rebecca, we need to meet. Today. There must be a solution that works for everyone. I agree. My attorney will be in touch to schedule a meeting. We don't need attorneys involved, mine already is. Yours should be too. I paused. By the way, Nathan, how's the server expansion coming? Microsoft's first milestone is due next week, isn't it? I ended the call before he could respond. 3 hours later, I sat across from Michael, Nathan, and their attorney in Eliza's conference room. Michael wouldn't meet my eyes. Nathan looked like he hadn't slept in days. Thank you for coming, Eliza began smoothly. My client has a straightforward proposal. She slid copies of a document across the table. I watched as Michael's face drained of color as he read it. This is outrageous, their attorney sputtered. MS. Chen cannot seriously expect 25% equity in the company as a non-employee with no formal role. Ms. Chen expects recognition as a co-founder, which she is, with the equity that accompanies that role. Eliza's voice was steel wrapped in silk. We have extensive documentation proving her contributions, financial and otherwise. This proposal is actually quite generous considering what a court might award after hearing our evidence. Nathan looked at Michael, then back at the document. What about the $73,000? We need those funds immediately for the Microsoft contract. Those funds can be transferred back to the company within the hour if you sign this agreement, I said, speaking for the first time since the meeting began. Michael finally looked at me, his expression a mixture of anger and shock. You planned this all along, didn't you? You knew exactly what you were doing when you took that money. No, Michael. I reacted to your betrayal by protecting myself. But once I saw clearly what had been happening for years, how you and your family systematically erased my contributions while benefiting from them, then yes, I made a plan. The room fell silent. You have 30 minutes to decide, Eliza stated. After that, we proceed with legal action, including notifying the board and Microsoft about the company's true financial situation and ownership disputes. Nathan immediately turned to their lawyer, speaking urgently in low tones. Michael continued to stare at me. I supported you, he said quietly. When you wanted to switch careers, when you were struggling with your mother's illness. I was there for you. And I supported you. The difference is, I never used that support to control you or erase you. I met his gaze steadily. You didn't divorce me because I didn't believe in you, Michael. You divorced me because you never believed in me. You never saw me as your equal, just as a resource to be used and discarded. His jaw tightened, but he had no response. 27 minutes later, they signed the agreement. 6 months later, Quantum Leap Technologies was featured in Forbes as one of the most promising startups in artificial intelligence. The article mentioned its 3 co-founders, Michael Chen, Nathan Walsh, and Rebecca Chen. My office overlooked the San Francisco Bay, a small but significant upgrade from the shared workspace I'd used before. As head of strategic partnerships, I had little direct contact with Michael, who remained CEO. Nathan had actually become something of an ally, especially after I helped secure the company's second major client. Linda Chen still wouldn't speak to me, which was fine. I no longer needed her approval or protection. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Dinner tonight to celebrate your first quarter profit share? I smiled as I looked at the equity statement that had arrived that morning. My 25% stake in Quantum Leap was now worth over $2 million on paper. The company I had helped build from nothing was thriving, and now I was being properly credited and compensated for my role. Absolutely, I texted back. I'm buying. As I stood to leave for a meeting, I caught my reflection in the office window. I hardly recognized the woman staring back at me, confident, unapologetic, visible. For 5 years, I had been the invisible breadwinner, the shadow founder whose contributions were minimized and erased. Now I stood in the light of my own making, never to be rendered invisible again. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever supported someone who later refused to acknowledge your contributions?